Okay, then here we go, and let's start the show. I guess, although the theme of the day is private decentralized biometric identities, which we will be getting into once Dada is ready here, let's start with the second portion, actually, about the Humanode Testnet version 2, Shamshel. So, yeah, we launched last week. Victor, want to give us a rundown on what's been going on with the testnet?
Well, the testnet is going on as expected. Uh, Actually, I'd say that it was great to hit almost 100 during the first day, and these almost all of them are new people, not those participated in the first version. And at the same time, less than a week, it's 300 participants. The chain is working pretty well. I mean, the chain is stable. The block time is pretty stable as well. It actually depends on the connection of nodes and how they maintain the connection. Do they break up for a while after 72 hours when they have to again pass through authorization? And we're seeing that at the moment, like why we made it 72 hours is because we want to see what happens when the node goes offline in terms of how the network functions. And the thing is that we got longer block times on average because of that. So we're immediately, putting the issue on GitHub for that and dealing with it as well. So that those things, while a lot of people come and go because they're free to, they won't get slashed for them turning the node, right, off compared to the uptime then that they will have to keep up to continue being humanoids. So the testnet is going smoothly. We need more nodes. That's the first thing. And the another thing is that it will be interesting to see how it all acts when we have grandpa and babe consensuses, because we really want to test them out with a lot of nodes. Uh, yeah.
Yeah,
Shannon,
so Victor, I know
what
that,
else do you wanted to find out?
well, we're pushing some new, some updates to the software.
Yep.
Anything about that we, some fixes? I know that, our whole team has been working like crazy on them.
Yep, that's true. And like the less than a week, and we shipped the first updates on Monday. Actually, the main thing there is proper handling of errors and showing people the real errors that happened. Uh, well, then the guide is updated. There is troubleshooting section there, which covers like 90% of the issues, which are I'm so sorry, which are pretty uh, common, like iOS 15 not working, and this I think is the biometric compatibility with the new version of phone that usually is updated once 2-3 months, if that happens. And well, all the other issues are really due to not properly configuring the node as in the guide. 7 or 8 times we just went to direct messages with people and hey, let's go over it again, and please tell me everything that is happening, just copy pasting what's happening in the logs in our chat. And 8 out of 8 times it worked perfectly, just following the guide and its steps one by one.
Well,
Yeah.
as you know, I mean, who wants to follow a guide, right? You want to be rebellious.
Yeah,
So
I mean, eventually
It's
I
the spirit of
went.
adventure, Shannon.
it's a
Oh.
spirit of adventure, yes.
Who needs a
Yeah,
guide? Who needs it?
I guess the trick is finding out how to make it happen, even if people are stubborn enough not to read the guide. But it actually is pretty. It's getting there. It's getting pretty foolproof.
Yeah, we've got, I think, 5 times less questions now, and most of them are easy to handle with like 4 troubleshooting simple guides.
Yeah, there's like 373 nodes now, and the last 50 kind of smoothly transitioned from a human to human node.
Yeah. As our developers say, we do not really want to spend time supporting people. That's why it's easier for us just to code and prepare an update. So that's what we're doing. We will well, if you want to if you want to think about the future, Shan, and talk about it, it will be much smoother with the new UI UX when all the backend errors, edge cases are eliminated. We will be making UX where person goes step by step and protecting fools from themselves, so to say, as product managers used to say.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, it's been a lot easier. I mean, as you know, I'm probably one of the most non-tech people around here, and I mean, I was able to install it without a hitch. I mean, there were some iOS issues in trying to figure out how to get my face scanned, but other than that, I mean, it really beats typing in everything. So I don't have to use a terminal. All I need to do is click a couple buttons and it's done. So I'm quite happy about it. So before we move on to our main section, perhaps some of our listeners here would be interested in asking some questions concerning about Testnet v2 and perhaps what will be happening with this testnet. One question that I do know will be asked is, when am I going to get my invite? I want to be invited. I've been itching for this, waiting for this. Well, we will be dishing out more invites later this week, and we will be, I mean, this is going to be a very short phase, as we will be soon moving to public beta testing, opening the door to everybody who wants to test. So, but anyway, if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, speak up, or type the question down in the Telegram chat, and we will be happy to answer your questions. In the meanwhile, Victor, anything else that you want to talk about concerning the testnet? Any interesting things that you've noticed?
Oh, well, not really, Shan. Just guys, stick to the guide. If you're on a virtual machine, don't forget to open and the necessary ports and make sure that other apps don't use those ports. I think that's it.
Data, do you have anything?
Well, I guess the very interesting part is that we amass a lot of nodes together. We see how stable the network is, and what our block time is, at what levels of Humanode we have in the network, and guess the transitioning to testnet v3 with Babe and Grandpa is by far most interesting step from now on for me personally, because I would really want to see how, the global consensus management happens.
Okay, so since it doesn't seem like there are many questions here, we can move on to our main portion of today's Fireside, and then later on we'll get back to questions concerning the testnet or anything Humanode. So, Dato, this week the community has voted that they want to hear about decentralized biometrics. So, what do we want to talk about here?
Well, most importantly, we're going to discuss, how interfaces of interacting between human and machines evolved through time, and to understand why decentralized private biometrics are a necessity in the 21st century. Even without talking about Humanode, I guess it's pretty essential for understanding the idea of why we're creating Humanode and what have we have to prepare. So basically, yeah, Shen, we'll be talking about like a bit of history of interfaces, then move on to understand how authorizations services evolved, and try and think about the future as well.
Okay, then let's talk about the history then. So, Dato, the opening statement is yours.
Well, while talking about what type of generations we as human beings went through when interacting with computers and any calculative technology as a whole, uh, the way we interacted was predominantly through keyboards and mouse interface. Then we had a very big evolution using the touchpads with our thumbs, and basically, our interaction with machines can be divided into various groups. But one of the most important ones are basically like authorization and authentication into a device. It's not when you're interacting with just a calculator, but when it's personalized with you and attached to you. So, um, really want to talk about why biometrics are such a developing trend nowadays. Why it is beginning to like become unbearable to work without them on many layers of society, starting from like some governmental stuff that is happening daily now, and corporate uh, biometric integrations, and as well as how biometric decentralization uh, could and should affect the world we're living in. So yeah.
Well, I mean, just looking at history, computing in general, even before we get into biometrics, I mean, went from being building size to being able to carry your personal device into the restroom while you take a dump. So, I mean, it went from something that is very nice to have, it is advanced, it was something that, could change the course of wars through faster calculation, to something that you need to order dinner, or depending on which country you're in, show that you have a proper QR code to eat. So, I
Well,
mean, yeah, go
it's
ahead.
obviously not only about the size but the method. The first generations were light bulbs and giant triggers, um, pre-analog, but it evolved into linguistic and number-based keyboards and then mouses. So it's like a different system, but it was predominantly used right now through the touch screens. and on the desktop is keyboard and mouse. You're not really using the light bulbs anymore. Somewhere you are, but mostly not. And the way authorization happens right now, for the most part, is via entering some number or some word or a combination of those through keyboard into a computer or an iPhone or whatever. So it's basically using your linguistics, your mathematical skills, your logical skills, and physically combining this experience for the user to be able to authorize himself into a network, and that the user is able to kind of securely do it for himself by saving his login and password, right? But there's a huge problem in this situation when it's not in any way connected to a document or a biometrical entity, is that basically you can clone as many like accounts or as many as passwords with you want, basically, and um, the systems that are working with customers in enterprise, the governmental systems that are working with citizens, like various status entities in their borders, and many other like markets and industries are really dependent on optimizing the experience for the users, but at the same time making sure that um, you know the optimized processes inside, and on knowing that you're interacting with real human being, and that you're interacting with at least a verified transparent or non-transparent identity, it's a crucial and vital point in creating management schemes uh, for the company itself, and like making a seamless experience, very personalized experience for the customers involved. So um, biometrics are like like you don't have to theorize about it. You can just remember like 20 years ago when people saw biometrics in the movie, they were like, that's KGB technology, that sci-fi experience. Right now it's basically everywhere. And biometrics are evolving at a very high pace right now compared to like even 4 years ago. For example, the liveness detection technology 4 years ago was not able to sustain the security that is able to do now. Like spoofing identities was really easy, and now we're talking about um, 99.8999% precision in understanding whether you're real or not, with a very seamless experience, like 5 or 10 seconds of your time at best, but not counting the amount of attempts though.
That's
Yeah.
true, and that's why actually earning that $100,000 reward on trying to hack the system or spoof the system is getting harder and harder to get. So, and I guess that's why it's offered now. But I mean, what was the growth rate? I can't remember, but it's like each year it gets harder by an amazing amount of numbers to spoof the system. And actually, just 1 second here. We have a hand raised. I am wondering if this is a question about our current topic. Just a minute. I believe we have.
It's a bit about on-chain progress, but I'm not sure it's okay to ask right now.
Oh, go ahead. Might as well.
Okay, so there's a lot of KYC multiplication and people paying others to pass the KYC, then use that account. So are you guys planning like expiry of some kind, or for example, for important stuff, the liveness check in last 20 hours time kind of stuff. Is that available or is that something designed? Because when you run the node, you need to run it. You need to liveness check in every 3 days or something like that. So is it possible also that data can be transferred outside?
Well, right now the testnet, yep, it's every 72 hours. And about the problem you told, well, this thing is configurable depending on use case. And for example, if you talk about problem on launchpads with side-bill buyers and purchases there, then I'd say that solution to this is taking the biometrics at when the sale it happens, not before that, right? When you can come to your friend, register for him, he will pass it all and well give you the password. But at the same moment, if you do it at the same moment, well, it bring you some cyber resistance. But anyway, yeah, it's not really possible to control somebody giving to the other one his identity especially if he's nearby and like your family member.
Yeah, exactly. But for example, Launchpad is a smart contract. So let's say smart contract can register, for example, a week earlier or maybe stake a day earlier. So you scan at that time maybe, and also while buying maybe some kind of
Yeah,
these requirements.
exactly. Yeah.
Can these enforce for smart contracts as well?
Yes, this is possible. That's one of the solutions we wrote it up in general terms in the article. But yeah, the thing is that imagine what we do is for different apps we need just cyber resistance, right? They don't even need the person's face itself. What they do is they ask our biometric like servers, hey, can you tell me if this person is unique compared to those I have on my list already, and if this is really him using right now the application, and that this is not his photo. And we just use yes or no to both questions. Ready. The list is ready.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for clearing that up.
Hey, you're welcome.
You're actually
Okay.
welcome to come and code it as well.
Okay, Dato. So we were talking about the past and somewhat the present. So I guess a little bit more about the present and why we need to head to the future.
So Shen, the way we authorized into our machines was basically centralized. Um, we all we have open frameworks, but not really like a lot of people use that for many reasons, because centralized authorization frameworks are attached to various services and for daily lives, and if you're not really concerned with your uh, privacy and your control of flows of information, then yeah, you're basically using the centralized one because it's really, really comfortable and nice. But we definitely and we admitted it many, many times before, made a mistake that um, we didn't invest more into educating people of like previous generations and the ones that uh, received first personal computer. Then privacy is really important, and that giving away so many chunks of your personal information into the hands of centralized services can lead to like information flow control and giving too much power away for this kind of entities. But now, as we're going through a transition to biometric authorization schemes, and um, basically centralized entities are now trying to um, take control of the camera feed and your biological traits to kind of match you against neural networks that they already running on the data that they're getting from you, it's giving it even more power to those entities. And obviously, to evade a future where centralized giants control biometric data and use it to sell you more stuff, is something that we definitely should pursue. That's why the appearance of decentralized biometrics is basically as essential as not giving control of your life to someone else, and being the owner of your biological digital traits that you're using to authorize various devices and services of the future. And disconnected from any blockchain or anything else, it's a thing that should provide an access to people to the World Informational Network, which is the internet basically, as the biological right not to give away their private information and biometric traits to any company or third-party entity, just him and the global informational network, and that's it.
So, in order to make this a reality, I mean, obviously, one path that we're trying to take here is, build Humanode. Are there any other possibilities out there, or is this our best shot at redeeming or keeping our future? I mean, we often talk about how the war to keep privacy is a lost war. No matter what we try to do right now, privacy is basically gone. But do we still have hope in trying to keep our biometrics private while making them usable?
Well, talking about absolute private biometrics, I guess that's another unachievable goal, because it's something that should be provided by very strict governmental structures to be realized to a full potential, but still making services that are based on biometric decentralization and making them with good UX UI, seamless, that can compete with centralized entities. That's something that we should look forward to. So that is why, like, very optimized, decentralized base is very important, because not only the biometrics should be decentralized, but all the dApps and any other form of digital interaction as well. It's just a small part of a very big Web3 system.
Okay, that's we've been talking about various possibilities, what we're aiming for. Just want to go back and, for those of you who might not know our background or your background that much, originally, when we were talking about why Humanode, there's this question that I asked you, which was, what you want to achieve. And your answer was more in the sphere of what you want to avoid. And perhaps this might be an interesting topic to bring up here, especially when we're talking about, the basic human rights of, our own biometrics. I mean, going back to, one point, it's kind of hard to hide any of our or all of our biometrics. A lot of it is out there on the web for anybody to see. And, the key actually comes down to liveness detection, is this person with these biometrics actually in control of this? Is this person alive, or is this just some made up biometrics? But setting that aside for a moment, what is the future that you really want to avoid, and what we want to avoid as a whole, actually. If you can talk a little bit about that, and might interest our listeners here.
A topic to bring up, Shen. Yeah, well, if we're talking about like the dark future, or dystopian future, that's imaginable. Then a world where basically biometrics are a part of everyday life of any human being, like accessing your doorways, your hallways, your houses, your cars, making transactional payments, because it's like straight, very verifiable, seamless experience for you without the need to remember any passwords or anything. So, and one of the very interesting, um, biometric interfaces that is evolving quite quickly is neuro interfaces or brain computer interfaces. Um, uh, you know, this industry has been around for a long time, but it was brought a lot of hype by Elon Musk. So basically, if we imagine that there's a future where brain-computer interfaces are the most direct way to interact with a calculating machine such as a computer, and basically brain-computer interface reads the electronic impulses of neurons to kind of convert it into machine code and uh, make computers do things without any third party real life uh, intermediaries such as your hands or keyboards or cameras or anything. It's just direct authorization and then direct process running in a machine. Then basically corporations controlling this data in a centralized fashion are overlords of humanity, and they are in the heads of everyone. They know what their subjects are thinking about, what they're feeling, what they want to do, and um, even this like small thoughts about brain-computer interfaces being in the hands of centralized or oligopolized entities is quite frightening, because you understand how much power and how much uh, control these entities already have over us, just because we're using these mobile phones or computers or sitting in a chat like this one, talking to one another. So yeah, to avoid this kind of future, a decentralized base should be built, and it should be not only decentralized technologically speaking, but decentralized in the ownership as well.
Actually, that's a very important point here. I mean, everything right now we do is basically owned by the major corporations. And I know we've talked about this before, and actually probably talked about it in our last Fireside too. But being able to, well, let's say right now, if you want to, there's a free app where there's some kind of service online, or even a news site. They can deny services, if you do not agree to their terms and conditions. And if you go through all the small print, you're basically selling off all your information there. And if you don't want to sell off all your information or activity or whatever for their causes or uses, they allow you to say no, but the only option is not use their services. I guess we'll give you the option not to give us this information, but in return, we will not allow you to use the service. So you really don't get a choice here. And one thing that I can see, let's say when we're talking about BCI's brain-computer interfaces in the future, I bet you there's going to be companies that are well known that will say, okay, we'll offer these chips to you for super cheap prices or for free, as long as you sell off all of your biological information, or if you allow us to monitor and send you information of our choosing. So I mean, I do agree that there's a technological side of the solution where we have to have an option where the control is very private and is in the decentralized community, and that not everything is pooled in a centralized server authorized by a centralized authority. But then again, there's a whole another sphere here of getting people to really understand that these biological rights are the same as basic human rights, and that companies just can't go around and rip people off without no consequences. But I don't know if there's a solution to that one. What do you think about that, Dado? Do you think there's a solution there? Do you think we'll be able to develop these decentralized communities to the point where, let's say, we would be able to create even brain computer interfaces that rival those of the big companies that are actually controlled by decentralized communities, or that are provided without the big corporations? Is that a possibility?
Well, if the tech running it is decentralized and private, if the blockchain basis for it it's properly decentralized and private, and if the DAO controlling it is decentralized by human beings and democratic, and not affected by populist or voters' apathy, then yes. Otherwise, not really.
So then what is our answer here? Do we, obviously, the Humanode project, our first step here is basically proper civil resistance. We're trying to create a system where, one person has one node, has one vote. Their biometrics are private, but they are the key. This is the first step, and of course we're trying to develop a system of decentralized governance that hopefully will work. It's a grand social experiment in that sense. What do you think the keys are to making it work?
Oh, Shannon, so you're asking specifically about governance, or like how we make it work technologically
Well,
with biometrics?
well, with the biometrics, I mean, obviously, that is one aspect. There's a technological aspect. So there's an answer to that, or a question concerning that, and then there's the broader question: and how do we utilize these biometrics to change the governance model to something that is usable for, let's say, social protection?
Well, I think that if you're talking about social protection, Shannon, is it protection like in terms of people can't coordinate and capture the network, or social protection in terms of, I think, protection of the data of people who participate, basically?
Well, I mean, obviously those two are also part of the protection. I'm just thinking more of the big pictures, and what do we need to do? I mean, technologically, we can find an answer here. So, technology is a big part of this. But assuming that the technology works, do you put that much faith in the human race to make it work? Actually.
Oh, well, I think that human race always figures out how they should use things, and I hope there will be a lot of experiments with the identities in the DAOs that are private. At the same time, they can manipulate votes because they don't know, well, in the first place, who published the proposal. And at the same time, well, you can really create international communities of different kind of equal people participating in them, right? And at the same time, without having to struggle with taking all their data and passports as participants of that of these communities, but at the same time making that community free in financial terms. And yeah, of course there will be different models of how people will use uh, biometric identifiers to build new kinds of DAOs. I think that will be always a combination of financial based DAO and the variation of where the participants are unique at the same time. And well, in our case, what we're building, right? We are developing the network the most equal possible without putting capital requirements into participating in it. So this is our big experiment, and yeah, that's what we're going to do.
What about you, Dato? I mean, we all know technological advances happen because we as a human race are lazy. To make things easier and less cumbersome. We dream about what I wish I didn't have to do, and somebody invents something so that it will be automatically be done and we won't have to be troubled by it. So human beings are in a sense extremely lazy here. Dato, do you have hope in the human race here?
Yeah, I always have hope in the human race, but it's affected by two things really. The first one is uh, knowledge. It's not widespread knowledge why people should care, and opinion can be different. Some people just couldn't care less. So they don't think that they're affected by it so much. And the other thing is that yeah, we're basically voting with our money. Um, so if something is more comfortable, we're willing to pay for it, and that's why it grows. Um, decentralization should compete in UX UI, not only in backend. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, we're down to having 15 more minutes here. I'd like to open the floor to any questions. It could be about decentralized private biometrics. It could be about the testnet. Any questions are game right now, so raise your hand or type in the questions in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. And don't be shy. I know everybody's shy, but we have, a fairly decent crowd today. I see a lot of names that I've never seen before here. And I know we're rambling on, but if you have questions, go for it. And okay, here you have another question. Go for it.
Oh,
Your mic is ready. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. My question about consensus. because proof of stake mostly causes centralization, whatever you try to do in some sense. And for Humanode, we are saying one vote, one people, but is there some mechanism going to weight some nodes over them by some, I don't know, tokens, etc., or some mechanism? Or all nodes going to be 100% equal? If that's the case, if numbers keep going up, that might be a issue for network delay, etc. in general. So I just like to know in general what you guys planning in that sense.
So the plan is as follows. We think that there are well tested consensuses that work with more than 1,000 nodes and then can theoretically handle up to 100,000 nodes, but theoretically. And these are from the Snow family, if we're talking the consensuses that are used without sharding. For now, we have Aura. Well, you understand how it works. It's not the best solution because the person who mines the block, he actually can choose which transaction is in the block and which is not. Yeah, and there is also one consensus which is a pretty noble one. We have already implemented the prototype using equal people participating in it of the snowball from the Snow family, and we are looking at the narwhal, which is a pretty new thing. At the same time, it will take making new consensus and making it compatible with the substrate uh, ecosystem and all the code base they have. So uh, if we're talking about starting like the Humanode project, we are going to have the Aura to the mainnet and at its launch, unless the Grandpa and Babe will be working fine. The thing is that nobody knows real limitations of Babe and Grandpa, especially if you make nodes equal, because it really decreases the computations that you have to make in each turn.
I mean, even
So
without a
yeah,
product release and real users, you can't actually see how it's gonna perform in the real case. So yeah,
and I also wanted to let you know one thing, that there is a substrate module which allows for swappable consensus, and it already proved working fine. So the thing is that even probably once we implement it, we will test it out together with uh, the nodes in the testnet, swapping Aura to other consensuses. So in the long way, there is not yet a consensus developed that can handle 1 million of nodes without ruining the cost for all that infrastructure. At the same time, being stable in terms of liveness, and that's why swappable consensus is a way to go, implementing the best solutions year after year. Due to modular nature of substrate, it's not that difficult to do.
yeah, probably building as a substrate was a good choice there. Allows a lot of flexibility.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, Victor, we have the next question from Sailcon from Danny. It says, what do you think about biometrics identity verification used for building credit systems in Web3 space?
Well, that's a good question, because it's so popular among our team as well, that we decided to record it in Fireside and write an article about that. We totally think that's the way to go for you know for those who want to get more reward, I'd say, APY, to get more from being able to prove they're real people with this kind of track record across many protocols, and it will give them the opportunity to borrow on better terms. For example, yeah, sure, I think this is something that is already in traditional finance, and it's not yet in crypto because there is no way to identify, person without it going through KYC. But yeah, we're basically creating that opportunity for the companies. That's why actually we're making it all EVM compatible, because all those protocols are run on EVM chains.
Okay, we still have time for a couple questions here. Who's next? Feel free. We basically have allowed everyone to speak here, so just raise your hand and speak up, or type the message in Telegram. And don't be shy. And as everybody knows, if people are shy, I'm going to start calling out names and having you ask questions whether you like it or not.
I wonder what Rafa thinks about decentralized biometric future and cryptography. Like, what obstacles are there for implementation of the cryptographic schemes to make sure that decentralized biometrics of the future are properly private?
Rafa? Okay, here.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think that it's very interesting what that was explaining about decentralization, because that's exactly the main not obstacle, but just the main hard feature that to bring into Humanode, because building a biometric system in a traditional centralized way is not so difficult, but getting rid of the central authority and decentralizing the trust among the nodes, it's not a very a simple task. So I think that the main thing to work about right now, how to decentralize, and we in the team have came across with the concept of collective authority, which is a way to decentralize the public keys, and that way we can have an authorization for the transactions and the searching and matching the feature vector that not rely on a central server. And also a very good feature that we have is that we are using zero knowledge proof system to verify that the user indeed have calculated the feature vector in a correct way. And that's also a very good point for us to have a trust system that relies in cryptography and rely also in the collective authority and not only in a central authority.
Thank you. So we have one more question from Danny. It says, is there a plan for the Humanode team to make the node compatible with mobile or lightweight clients in the long term?
Well, I can answer that question. So if you talk about validator nodes, I don't think that will be the case. And why? Because those nodes, they do a lot of computations in order to execute complex smart contracts, probably support bridges, and of course, eventually each node, not only a small subset of them, will all be involved in biometric computing. In order, for the network to be sustainable and with like high capacity, the hardware of node runners has to be good, and well, it should be almost the same, because the weakest node is actually like the speed of the whole network is in the weakest node sometimes, unfortunately. And that's why I'd say that such a network, where we're talking about huge financial network with a lot of nodes, it's something impossible to run on mobile yet. We don't know how mobile technology will go on, but not yet there.
However, if we're just talking, regular users, then
Yep. Then, of course, if we're talking regular users, not those participating in consensus, you won't even need to set up a node, because Humanode network will process what people will take from their mobile apps.
okay, we have time for one more question here, if anybody wants to go. And just to answer what Tian wrote, yes, it is recorded. It is posted every week, usually a day or two after the Fireside. So you'll be able to listen to the whole thing and skip through the portions that you don't want to hear. Anyway, we have time for one more question. Does anybody want to ask anything? Perhaps Andre? Any thoughts? Any comments?
I don't have any comment right now. Sorry, I was curious about that structure in general, but answer was quite satisfying for me.
Okay, Dato, do you have any thoughts, any closing statements? I mean, I do. Oh, here's one question before we get to you. It says, would it be possible to fork the protocol or the software? Victor, do you want to go
In
ahead?
the future, yeah, of course.
Yeah, we'll be totally open source, but just don't know when. But soon enough.
Okay, so just one thing to keep in mind, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we will be having some rather big announcements coming. So I hope you guys will, keep your eyes and ears open for that. Of course, we are having, open public beta coming very soon. So that will be an announcement to make. Dato, do you have any thoughts, any comments?
Stay decentralized, stay private. That's all I gotta say.
Victor, how about you?
And just a closing thought for those who want to play with Humanode network. So if you think about it, there is actually a way already to have the biometric uh, identifiers on, like, off chain but still decentralized. And I want to say that, yeah, it's going to be pretty soon that apps and protocols start integrating it, and we'll see how people feel about it compared to what they have now, even in crypto. not compared to real world stuff.
Okay, I would almost want to ask you, what we can expect, but then again, I'm trying to remember that you're trying to, hold my horses here because yes, some big announcements will be coming soon. So yes, once again, thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. And yeah, have a great week. Thank you for being here.